We begin tonight in Wellington, where residents of houses in the suburb of Te Aroha are questioning whether people should be living there at all after a major slip triggered road closures and evacuations. Some residents had just moments to grab essentials before fleeing homes left teetering on the edge. In the suburbs of both Te Aroha and Evans Bay, the residents of two homes in those suburbs will be unable to return until council reports are completed next week. The Wellington City Council says there have been 460 slips in the city so far this year, of which 300 have been repaired. Lots still works in progress. In a moment, we'll speak with Wellington Civil Defence Controller Bruce Pepperell, but first this report from Jacob McSweeney.
Christopher Ramos Flores is a PhD student at Victoria University and stands at his front door looking at the contractors cleaning up the slip on Devon Street, about 20 metres away. A white sewage pipe hangs out of the hillside, spewing effluent onto the pile of rubble. Christopher Ramos Flores' neighbours at the big white house above the slip were evacuated last night. Mr. Ramos Flores says he noticed bits of rubble coming down during the week, and he wasn't surprised after heavy rain last night that a big heap has come down.
So it was like that for a week maybe, and then suddenly last night I went out, and when I came back it was all completely down, and it's kind of scary to be here after you see that, because as you can see here, my house has a slope. I feel like all of the houses around here are in similar conditions with the weather and, you know, the fear of maybe an earthquake or something, and raining all the time. It makes you wonder if it's a good idea to be living here.
Christopher Ramos Flores has already had slips close in on the side of his house and points out a new wooden retaining wall about 2 metres in height, keeping a small amount of rubble out. And if the slip had fallen in a direction towards his house, he and his wife would have been cut off.
The house is connected to the street with a tiny bridge, so we actually don't have another way to go up here except for the fire escape. So yeah, if the slip had happened this way into the bridge, we wouldn't have the bridge and we wouldn't be able to access our home.
Christopher Ramos Flores says his flat is cold and doesn't get much light, and he says now it's dangerous and it could be time to move on.
It's been kind of hard with the weather, and now with this thing happening here, and I actually have the feeling that the house is getting sloppier lately. I don't know if it's actually...
It's starting to slope.
I feel like the other day I was walking and I just had the sensation that I think it's more pronounced now.
Tony Kennedy lives further down Devon Street, close to where it meets Aroha Street. He says this slip is the biggest he's seen on the slalom street.
There's lots of little slips it's quite prone, this whole street's prone to slips, but they're usually pretty small. That one's pretty big by Devon Street standards. That deck is pretty precariously placed relative to the slip.
Another Devon Street resident who came to check out the damage was Adam Stewart, a Victoria University student.
We actually are in a steep ditch down there, so if our bank went, we'd just be buried under that probably, but I doubt it would happen. Ours is quite built up with like stairs and all this sort of stuff, so the bank's probably held together fairly well, I would say, and it's been there for those houses in the bottom of like early 20th century houses.
Over in Evans Bay, a house on Maida Vale Street was evacuated this morning. There were 2 flats in the large house overlooking Wellington Harbour, and both sets of tenants had to quickly pack bags and get out as council staff were concerned about the state of the slope before engineers checked it. Georgia Murray and Hannah Masters both work at the bakery Pandoro and were bewildered when I arrived at their door to tell them their house was on the edge of a slip.
When we moved in, we asked the landlord about earthquakes, but we didn't ask about slips. We've lived there for 2 weeks today, and we're supposed to have our third flatmate moving in Sunday.
Yeah, he's a bit concerned now.
Yeah, but I feel like we live on a boat, but I don't want to actually be a boat.
Another slip on the Niall Gorge Road restricted peak morning traffic to 1 lane, but that was cleared by 9 o'clock. There were a number of smaller ones on the sides of roads in Johnsonville, Evans Bay and Aroha Valley. I te whanganui atara mo te otaka o te ahiahi, ko Jacob McSweeney tēnei.